Hi, welcome to our latest bonus chat. This is from our pod recording looking back over Scotland v Ireland. If you missed it, you'll find it on Apple, Spotify, and all our other usual places. Well, we're 6 matches into the 2025 Six Nations, but with 2 bye weeks throughout the tournament, that means we occasionally have to turn our attention back to the URC. And next weekend sees Leinster traveling to Swansea to play the Ospreys. We currently lead the table by 11 points from Glasgow, although the Bulls win over Stormers last Saturday means if they win their other game in hand, it could make the race for a top spot interesting, especially with the two meeting in Pretoria on March the 22nd. For now, we'd just like to take a step back and see how the table is shaping up ahead of the final stretch as the teams all try to give themselves a good shot in the knockouts. Starting with yourself, Connor, how do you see the competition so far?
There's a reason we keep referring to it as the best league, because it like this. Look at how tight the table is. Okay, yes, the top three teams are looking reasonably confident where they are, and you can't see beyond those top three teams getting a playoff place. I'm not going to say who's going to be in which playoff place, but those top three, that's Leinster, Glasgow, and Bulls, looking like getting looking like getting home quarterfinals if they keep going the way they are. No guarantees after that. I think the fact that the Sharks also have a game in hand in fourth on 29 points, and then you go down the table, and if you take Cardiff in fifth down to Ospreys in 12th, there's only 7 points between them. And then you've got the Lions on 19 points. That's 10 behind Cardiff in fifth, but with 2 games in hand. I think they'll win possibly one of those games, not both. But suddenly, they win one of those games and they're up in the top 8. The middle of the table is looking tight and very, very, very tough for all those teams. As I say, I think top 3 will end up in a quarterfinal place. I think the bottom 2 certainly won't. That's Dragons and Zebre. I think Connacht, who are down in 14th at the moment, on the same number of points as the Lions, but that's 19. But as I say, the Lions have those 2 games in hand. But I think Connacht will surprise some people and push their way up the table. I'm not sure they'll get all the way up to a playoff place, but I think they'll run it close. And I think they're only 4 points behind Ulster at the moment. I could see them finishing ahead of Ulster in the table this year. From the other countries represented, for Munster, it'll depend, I think, a little bit on their run-in for the Heineken Cup. Sorry, for the Champions Cup. Their run-in there, how do they go against La Rochelle, and how many fronts are they playing on? Because that's a big challenge while they still have so many players out on the injury list. Edinburgh don't seem to be firing in the same kind of way they did over the last couple of years. They might find it difficult to get a place in that top 8. Cardiff are sitting in 5th. I think, and Scarlets in 6th. I think one of those will finish the season in a playoff spot, but not both. Because I can't see, particularly during the bye weeks with players missing, I can't see them getting the results they want while they're missing some of their bigger players, with some of the games that are coming up for them. Look, it's great that it's such a tight league. It's great that you can be having this kind of conversation less than halfway through the season. There's only 10 games played. Sorry, it is about halfway through the season, actually, now that I think of it. But to have 10 games played and still have 14 teams, I think, who are in contention for a playoff spot. I don't see any other league looking that strong right now.
Yeah, it is very tight around those playoff spots. But even from Leinster's point of view, I mean, we spoke at the beginning of the season that it didn't matter if we won all our matches with bonus points and by 50 burgers every week in, week out. Nothing's going to happen until May, and this period actually shows why. Because I mean, Leinster are top of the table by 11 points. But if you look at the Bulls, they won at the Stormers last weekend, and now they have 3 home matches in a row. They have an extra match as well at home to the Lions between these 2 rounds. And so they win those, and it's a totally different table. The South African teams, obviously, the climate's different down there, and their season does go a little bit differently. And this is when they come into their own. And of course, they lose no players to the Six Nations. They have pretty much full squads playing full blast from January on, and so they get a straight run through into the URC the URC playoffs. And guess what happens? Guess what happens for Leinster right after the Six Nations when we won't have those best players? We go down to South Africa and we play the Bulls. I'm not saying we can't do it, but it makes it very interesting, and it makes anyone looking at this table thinking Leinster run away with it. It'll make you think again, because that table could look very different by the time
it's a massive ask to have to go down to South Africa next, and that's why these 2 games are so important, that we've got to come away from both of these games with points of some kind to give ourselves a little bit of a cushion heading to South Africa.
Absolutely. And of course, that doesn't apply to us. Obviously, the points are even more important for the other provinces. You said Connacht may be a bit out of it at the moment. You never know, a couple of results, they might put themselves in contention. But Ulster and Munster, they're both, I mean, it's not just qualifying for the playoffs, it's getting into next year's Champions Cup. We all this talk about who should and who shouldn't be in the Six Nations squad. I mean, you got to say, for those fans, some of them, they say, well, maybe we can hold on to a couple of our players for these couple of weeks, because we're going to need them, because every single point is going to be crucial. Munster are playing the Scarlets. They're at home to Edinburgh. They're going to need maximum points from those 2. And Ulster, they go to Benetton. Nothing guaranteed there. Scarlets at home these 2 weeks. I mean, loads to play for. What do you think, Tom?
Yeah, pretty much agree with both you've said there. I suppose the other caveat for what's coming up behind Leinster, particularly the South African teams, is that the South African teams haven't done well in Europe this year, which gives them another clear path. They don't have to worry about Leinster having to play Harlequins and then maybe play Glasgow and then maybe play whoever in a semi-final and maybe play Toulouse or whoever. Let's hope we get there again. But so it does make it a little bit easier. They literally have a straight path. The Bulls will be thereabouts near the top of the table when the crunch comes. But the league is going really well. It's interesting. Connacht nearly have as many tries as the Bulls, but they're one's third and one's 14th, as Connor said. So it's fine margins as well. I suppose the thing in Leinster's benefit maybe this year is, maybe apart from the Bulls, who I have a good run in, is that those play teams from sort of 4th to 14th all play each other, and every point and every try they'll all be scrapping for, so it's not like I think you're going to have 1 or 2 dominant teams come out of that whole pack. I think it's going to be a dogfight right down to the last week, A, for the playoffs for the URC, and B, for qualification for next year's Champions Cup. I think that's in our benefit, that it's very good and competitive down there, that there won't be many gimmies in this league. I know Zebra and Dragons, especially the Dragons, are struggling. Zebra have had a couple of big results, most notably against 2 Irish provinces. But yeah, look, it's all set up for a good finish. I tend to agree with both your sort of synopsis, who could be there and who might be there come the end of the season. But you'd have to fancy the Bulls, and the Sharks probably going to be under pressure, given the squad that they have, to front up this year, considering last year was a bit of a disaster league-wise anyway. The owners there wouldn't have been happy with that, and they've sort of flunked out of Champions Cup weekly enough. I think they're in the Challenge Cup, maybe, trying to remember. But yeah, Bulls and the Sharks would be big dangers. Obviously, Glasgow are very hard to beat, and they're the champions, so they're there to be bet as well. But I can't see outside that top 4 changing much, given the 2 South African teams have games in hand, and a lot of other competitors have to go down there. But look, we've been on this road before, as in from a Leinster point of view. We just have to get to that situation where we're managing players throughout the Six Nations, throughout the European Cup and the league, and just it all came down last year to not getting a kick against Ulster. I think an extra point would have had the Bulls at home rather than away, and they're the small margin. So every single point, I know we've 2 games coming up against the Ospreys away and Cardiff at home. Those games are just as important. You know what I mean? Who we pick and who we select, and You know, trying to get maximum point in those games if possible. Ospreys away is always tricky. It always seems to rain in Swansea and drags us down to their level. But yeah, we should be looking to get as many points as possible in those two games, because every point will matter, as we found to our cost last year.
Yeah, Connor.
I think one of the benefits we'll have there, though, is that because of the players being away, we'll have a fairly steady squad for those next 4 games. It'll be a lot of the same players who play against, you know, who go to Ospreys next week, and a lot of the players who are at home for Cardiff will be the same players who go down to South Africa, who will have been playing
Yeah,
together.
they'll see it as a block.
Gelling well, and it's that cohesion thing that Andy Farrell talks about. They'll be together, they'll be on the same page, they've had the training time, they've run the set plays and the good moves. So, you know, they know what to expect from each other, in a way that just dropping players in and out, as sometimes happens in the beginning of the season, doesn't develop that cohesion. So I think we're really going to benefit from the fact that there is a run of games for them.